Hey, 5th grade, I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. Today we're doing Module 5, Lesson 14. But before I go into that, I just want to remind you that we are going to have a Google Meet session today from 10 o'clock to 10:30. So don't forget to hop on there and ask me any questions that you have. So that's what's happening for Monday, and let's just get right into it. So I'm going to go over number 1 on page 99. You had to copy down the notes from the problem set, numbers 1 and 3 on page 99, and then the exit ticket, which was on page 101. So for number 1, it says that George decided to paint a wall with 2 windows. Both windows are 3.5 feet by 4.5 feet rectangles. Find the area the paint needs to cover. Okay, so we need to do this in 3 steps. We need to find the area of the wall, the area of the window, and then the area of the paint. So in our word problem, it gives us what the length and width of the windows are. And then in our little picture right here, it gives us the length and width of what the wall is. So our formula that we're going to be using today is A equals length times width. That's how we find area. So for the first one, I did the area of the wall. I said A equals 12 7/8 times 8. Remember that when you have a mixed number right here, you need to change it to an improper fraction. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your denominator, multiply it by the whole number, and then whatever number you get there, you're going to add it to your numerator, and your denominator will stay the same. So when you do that, you get 103 over 8, and then we have a whole number of 8, and I'm just going to put that over 1. So times 1. And then when you multiply your numerators across, so 103 times 8, you get 824. And then when you multiply your denominators, 8 times 1, you get 8. If you take those two numbers and divide them, you'll get 103, and your label is going to be feet squared. So now to find the area of the window, which are these little thingies in here, that's what these tiny squares stand for, and this big thing is the wall. This big rectangle, it's not a thing, it's a rectangle, sorry, is the wall, and it gives you the dimensions right there. So I'm doing A equals length times width. So I have A equals 3.5 times 4.5. Again, these are mixed numbers that need to be changed into improper fractions. I do that by taking the denominator, multiplying it by the whole number, and then taking that number and adding it to the numerator. So I get 7/2 times 9/2. When you multiply your two numerators together, you're going to get 63. Your two denominators, 4. So you have 63/4. And when you divide that, you get 15 and 3/4 feet squared. So now I'm not done with this yet. I need to find the area. Of the paint. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take my 103 and I'm going to put a denominator of 4/4 right there. And then I'm going to subtract it from my 15 and 3/4. So I got my 103 from the area of the wall. And now I'm getting my 15 and 3/4 from the area of the window. When you take those two numbers and subtract them, you should get 87 and 1/4. And then you're going to take that number and you're going to subtract that from 15 and 3/4 again. And if you notice, we have the same denominators here. That's why I put that 4/4 there, so we could have common denominators. So you don't have to worry about changing the denominators on that. All you're going to do is just subtract the numbers. So if you take 87 and 1/4 minus 15 and 3/4, you should get 71 and 2/4 feet squared. So that should have been your answer for the first one. It was 3 steps to get that answer. So kind of a lot of work, but not too bad once you do it. So for number 3 on page 99, it says, All-in-One Carpets is installing carpeting in 3 rooms. How many square feet of carpet are needed to carpet all 3 rooms? So this means that we need to find the area of room A, room B, and room C, and then add all those areas together to get a total. So what I have is I'm using the same formula, A equals length times width. And if you look right here, this picture gives you all the informations for the lengths and widths that you need. And it even labels it for you. So you have room A, room B, and room C. So to find the area of room A, I just did A equals length times width. The length of room A was 25 and 1/4, and the width was 15.5. So I took those two numbers, I changed them into improper fractions. I multiplied the numerators and denominators together. And when I did that, when I multiplied my numerators, I got 3,131. And when I multiplied my denominators, I got 8. I took those two numbers and I divided them. I got 391 and 3/8 feet squared. Now, I did literally the same exact thing for room B and room C. So I did my A equals length times width. I took those numbers. If they were a mixed number, I changed them to an improper fraction. And then I went ahead and I took these numbers. I multiplied my numerators and denominators. I got 703 over 2. And then I took that, I divided it, and I simplified that down to 351.5 feet squared. But I know that at the end I'm going to want to total it. So I just went ahead and I made my new fraction right here, 4/8, because as we can see, we're working with eighths right here. So I made this fraction into eighths. And I did the same thing for room C. I looked at room C. I saw that my length was 21 and my width was 16 3/4. All I did with my 21 was put that over 1. I needed to make my 16 3/4 into an improper fraction. So I took that denominator, I multiplied it by 16, and then I took that answer and I added it to 3. And when I did that, I got 67/4. When I took those two numbers and multiplied them together, I got 1,407/4. And when I divided those two numbers, I got 351 and 3/4 feet squared. And like I said, I want to make that denominator into eighths, so I just took the numerator and denominator and multiplied them by 2. So I got 351 and 6/8 feet squared. So now what I'm doing by changing those fractions is I'm making all the denominators the same. I'm making them common denominators so that way I can add them. So now for my total, I'm taking my total from room A, my total from room B, and my total from room C, and I'm adding those all together. And when I add those all together, that gives me 1,094 and 5/8 feet squared. So that was your lesson on page 99. And now on page 101, we have the exit ticket. So the exit ticket on page 101, it says that Mr. Kilmick made his wife a rectangular vegetable garden. The width is 5 3/4, and the length is 9 4/5. And the label is feet on that, by the way. It says, what is the area of the garden? Here's what I did. I drew a picture because you all know that I really like to draw out pictures. So I drew out a picture. Obviously, the word problem gives us enough information that you don't have to draw out a picture. It says, it tells me what the length is and it tells me what the width is. So I went ahead, I drew my picture. I said that this was my length and this was my width as stated in the problem. I used my formula A equals length times width. So I said A equals 9 4/5 times 5 3/4. I changed those mixed numbers to improper fractions. So I got my new numbers when I got that was 49/5 times 23/4. I took my numerators, multiplied them together. I got 1,127, and I took my denominators, which is 5 and 4. This doesn't really look like a 5 on camera, but I promise in person it does. My denominators were 5 and 4, which gave me 20. I took this number that I got right here, this fraction, I divided it, and I got 56 7/20 feet squared. So that was your lesson for today. Don't forget that you do have a Google Meet. I know I said it in the beginning, but we do have a Google Meet, so if you're confused on anything, please feel free to send me an email or come on the Google Meet and ask me. I'll be happy to answer everything. Keep up the good work. You're all doing great, and I will see you all very soon.